What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1503 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, the best baseball in the city outside the Dome. I'm recording live from Christie Pitts this Sunday. That's only in a couple of days. I'm there at 2 p.m. Drop by, say hi. I'm beyond the left field fence. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning Moneris podcast, hosted by FOTM Al Grego, and Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut is the MP for Timmins, James Bay. It's Charlie Angus. Welcome, Charlie.
Thanks so much. I'm kind of stoked to be on your show.
Is that the truth? That's the real deal. I trust you.
You got to trust me. That's the real
stoked.
deal.
Then I look in your eyes right now. You look like a stoked gentleman right now. Yeah. But it's an honor to have you. You're the punk rock politician. So we've got a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to cook with gas and do this in 60 minutes. A couple of quick notes here because you do so much. So it's like, where do I go? But Peter Muir just says, I grew up in Timmins, so I'm looking very much forward to this one. So when did you arrive here in Toronto for this weekend? Did you come from Timmins?
I came from Ottawa because we're still in the parliamentary session. So this weekend I'm in Toronto all weekend, and I love being in Toronto.
You're at the Horseshoe Tavern on. So it's funny. I'm at Christie Pitts for a recording at 2 p.m. Sunday, which means I can't be at Horseshoe Tavern for 1 p.m. Grievous Angels, Last Call for Cinderella album release show. So you're in town because you got that gig at the Horseshoe.
Yeah, we're launching album number 9, Last Call for Cinderella, and I just love the Horseshoe Tavern. It's one of the last great venues that's still standing. We're seeing live music disappearing everywhere, and I kind of sometimes worry that we're becoming dinosaurs of a culture that's under threat everywhere, and the Horseshoe is defiant, and it's staying proud, and it's still there, and it just seems like the perfect place for the Grievous Angels to launch our new record.
Did you ever play at the Phoenix or the Diamond Club before that?
I played at all of them, yes.
Well, that's the news. I guess that news just dropped this past week, but I guess there was rumblings for a while that a development was going to happen at 410 Sherbourne. But the Phoenix, I mean, there's a venue that's going to be gone soon. I guess we got early 2025. It's gone, and long may the Horseshoe Tavern run. It's amazing to get to see Grievous Angels there Sunday at 1 p.m. We're going to have a lot of music chat in this conversation, probably more music than anything. But, we've established the fact you're an MP, but you did announce that you're not running for re-election in the 45th federal election, the next one. So you announced that in April. But just definitively on Toronto Mic'd right now, why, Charlie Angus, are you not running for re-election in the next federal election?
Well, number one, becoming a politician was never on my bingo card of life plans. I very much was an accidental politician. I got active in the fight to stop Toronto's garbage from going to the Adams mine, and I realized what a corrupt deal that was. I met Jack Layton, who was a city councillor. He said, Charlie, we need people like you. We need people with passion, people who are rooted at the grassroots.
Yeah.
So I ran in 2004. I've won 7 elections, 20 plus years. That's way more than a lifetime in politics. But my riding is bigger than the United Kingdom. And they decided that my riding wasn't big enough. So in the next election, they've added 20,000 extra kilometers, about a dozen more towns. It's easier for me to drive from my home to Ottawa than to some of the new communities. And
wow.
I've been a part-time dad, part-time husband. I love my little town of Cobalt, this ragged little mining town, and I don't know hardly anybody in it anymore because I'm never home. And I want to play with the Grievous Angels, and so I figure after 20-some years on northern highways, it's time to change things up a bit. I still am going to be very active politically, I think. Maybe more grassroots,
right?
Maybe more on the streets, and doing just stuff that I love doing.
So when did you make this decision? Like, and does it have any correlation with putting together Last Call for Cinderella?
I realized during the pandemic how much I'd been away and how much I missed. We recorded our previous album, Summer Before the Storm, just literally on the eve of the storm of the pandemic. And I was really inspired by the new lineup of the band. I was wanting to play more with them. And so Last Call for Cinderella was a project that became really exciting to be part of. And I realized that's a part of who I am. It's I think part of what the Canadian story can be. The Grievous Angels have always tried to play a role of telling who we are. So, yeah, if I was doing another round of politics, this album wouldn't have been possible to make it.
You're returning to your roots.
I never thought I got too far from my roots. My wife said to me when I ran for politics, she said, if you come home talking like a politician, I'm going to smother you. And I said, would you keep that promise, please? And so
that's true love right there.
That's true love. That's when you married an Alberta wife. And she just said,
I married an Alberta wife.
Did you? There you go. So
from Edmonton, Alberta.
Same with mine.
Get out of here. Okay, wild.
Yeah, she's an Oilers fan.
I'm living with an Oilers fan. So she's kind of a playoff Oilers fan, to be honest. I never see the Oilers on the TV during the regular season, and then suddenly we're Oilers family and we're watching the Oilers games now. My Leafs went out in 6 games. 7 games, right? Overtime. I'm trying to remember it all. I'm trying to erase it from my memory. But bottom line is, I'm watching this team advance, to the Stanley Cup final, and she's happy, and I want to be happy for her, and I am happy for her, but I'm also kind of like super jealous. Like I just like I don't know what this. I actually will tell you now. I haven't been alive to see my team advance as far as Edmonton has advanced this season. Like, it's not fair.
Well,
just throwing it out there.
I don't know. I begged my daughter not to be a Leaf fan. I said, if you become a Leaf fan...
That's true love.
I said, this is the best advice your dad can give you. Do not become a Leaf fan. It'll ruin your life like it ruined mine, and it's ruined her life. So I've always loved the Oilers.
Damaged.
I love the Oilers. I love the old Oilers. They just said
I love the old
team.
Oilers too.
So, I'm there. I'm content. At this point, I'm content.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll be watching. Was it tomorrow night? I'll be watching. Don't worry, and I'll be cheering for the Edmonton Oilers for sure. Okay, let's go. So, speaking of going back to your roots, you mentioned Cobalt, so I just want to let you know I got a note as well. The W Beach is the name of the handle. Who wants to just says I love Cobalt. So, is Cobalt also a book you wrote?
Yes.
How many books have you written?
I am just finishing the final proofs for book number 9, called Dangerous Memory. How the 80s upended everything, and it is a story of how this young generation got totally screwed over by what went down in the 80s. But it's also a lot about Toronto and the punk scene, what was happening. So that's the new book. The last book was Cobalt, which is the town I live in, but also the town that really opened the doors of a lot of stuff in terms of mining, resource exploitation, and the other Canadian histories we never tell.
Okay, well, that sounds amazing. But this new book, this unreleased book, I need to get you back to dive deeper into that, because maybe we'll touch on a little bit of it right now, because you moved to Toronto, I guess, in 1973. But I want to talk about, let me play a little music, talk to you about early days for you, and then, of course, we'll catch up with the Grievous Angels and everything. But just a little taste of this.
Say wake up. One people everywhere. One people gonna stand together. Yeah, so we gotta show we care.
What are we listening to, Charlie?
That was the song One People by our band L'Étranger, which was one of the first rock videos out, and capturing the moment in the 80s, the fight against apartheid. There was a time in the 90s and that, and I kind of cringed when I heard that song. I thought, God, we wore our idealism on our sleeves and that. But I think now, like, how important those moments were when young people were just standing up. I mean, the apartheid regime was so brutal, and it seemed like this wall that could never be defeated. Artists, activists, and our band was part of that, and our band was involved in the fight against the rise of the extreme right that was happening in the city, the Rock Against Racism movement. And I think now we're in this moment again. Like, I see young people standing up in Gaza and being denounced in the media as radicals and extremists and blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you're on the wrong side of young people in a movement for justice, you're on the wrong side of history. So that was that moment of our time with L'Étranger and Andrew Cash on vocals.
Tell me a bit about Andrew Cash. It's interesting how you both end up in politics, but you're still close with Andrew.
Andrew and I are like brothers. I mean, we have very much a similar background. We met when we were 14. We went to the same Catholic parish in Scarborough. We both learned to play guitar with the same plan, was that we were going to quit school, form a band, and go on the road. And that was our plan, and we kept to that plan. And then when I got elected, it was funny that Andrew then got elected. So we are the only two parliamentarians in the Westminster system of government that opened for the dead Kennedys.
I would say that's a fun fact.
That is a good fact, yes.
That's a great fun fact. And okay, now tell me a little bit. I just want to get a taste. I kind of miss the 80s, scene in Toronto. I'm talking to a lot of people who are there. I'm fascinated by it all. I can't wait to read this new book. What's the name of your upcoming book?
It's called Dangerous Memory.
Dangerous Memory. And whenabouts are you aiming to release this book into the wild?
We're looking at this book coming out within House of Anansi Press probably the end of September.
And you'll be we'll see when, I guess we'll see when you're no longer MP and you'll have a lot more time in your hand to come by and chat it up. But I love talking about the scene. Like, tell me about co-founding this band. Like, whenever I read up about your band with Andrew there, I always want to butcher the pronunciation. L'Étranger?
L'Étranger.
L'Étranger. I need a better French accent. My kids have a better French accent than I do. But they often label it a punk rock band. Everyone, it's punk. Now, I don't even know how to define punk. Like, is punk a sound? Is punk an ethos? Is Lowest of the Low punk? Because Ron Hawkins has punk ideologies.
Lowest of the Low, I think one of their first gigs was opening for us. So I give them definite punk credos.
Right.
Punk is an attitude.
Right.
And it was DIY. It was recognizing that things didn't have to be the way we were told they were. At that time, the music scene was really bloated and arrogant and lazy. And there were a lot of young people who felt like they were very much on the margins. We were coming into a really dangerous Cold War with the Reagan years. We were literally on the verge of global annihilation. We were in the worst economic recession since the Depression. And yet in Toronto at that time, there was this incredible explosion of creativity. And part of that was driven by the economics of the recession, because it was low rent. There were all these. Toronto was deindustrializing at a staggering rate. You could rent lofts. Bands could get practice spaces. You could make mistakes, and it didn't cost you a lot. So, university wasn't all that expensive. So it was an opportunity of flowering, and people were trying things. And also, it was a very political time. And I write a lot about that in terms of how young people were dealing with a world that seemed like very much today, a world that seemed very much in crisis, yet there was this moment. And I write a lot about my heartbreak for Toronto, because it was, to me, such a magical place, and it's now become one of the most exclusive cities in the world. We turned over these beautiful neighborhoods to global capitalism and condification, and yet it had this mix of neighborhoods. So I write a lot about how all these things went down, the economics, the neoliberal agenda that stripped workers of their pensions, that stripped our neighborhoods of livable housing, and sold us this lie of the globalization, which it's all falling apart now, and we're going to have to think of a new way of living. And so the book covers that, and it covers a lot of the bands, the scenes, the places we were playing, the world that I was growing up in.
Wow, you totally bummed me out here, because you're right. I talked to these artists coming up in Toronto in the 80s, and they're renting. I don't know. I'm thinking of there's so many bands. Kim Mitchell's band, for example. Like he's telling me it cost him $100 a month or whatever to pay the rent, and he could be a starving artist, and they could figure it out or whatever. But today, I guess you need what? I guess the secret to being a punk rocker in Toronto is to have rich parents. Is that the?
Well, my wife and I moved in together. She was a student from Alberta, and I made $60 to $100 a week as a dishwasher, and we had an apartment, right?
Right.
And you just did enough dishwashing shifts so you could play music or do politics. And, when my oldest daughter moved back and was living in Toronto with a middle-class wage and having to have 3 roommates, I was like, okay, there's something wrong with this picture here. And so those are stuff I'm writing about now at my age, is like, what's going on with the economy that people are being driven down like this.
So you've got, the big single I played there, One People, which you mentioned got played on Much Music. If you didn't mention, you mentioned the video. But so was Much Music's playing it? Would CFNY play it? Where's who's playing in this city? Who's playing L'Étranger?
In those days, the main rock stations wouldn't touch new music at all.
Not even CFNY?
No, CFNY did play. CFNY was the exception. CFNY broke a lot of acts. Brave New Waves, which was CBC, when CBC really seemed to care a lot about music. They didn't start playing it till 11 o'clock at night, but that was all right, because that's when kids in Regina got to hear the band, because the music was sort of like underground. And then one of the interesting things with CFNY was we were up for a big award as the top upcoming band, and yet the people, some of the sponsors had big money in South Africa, and we didn't go to the award ceremony. And it sent a message that we were this difficult band, a band that was hard to deal with. We really didn't want to give CFNY a black eye, but in those days, the lines were really, really drawn, sort of like what's happening now today with artists and students on the Hamas, the Israel, the Gaza crisis. Like, we didn't go to the award ceremony, and it cost our band, I think, big time. But if we had to do it all over again, we probably would do the same thing.
Now, is this Casby's or UNO's?
These were the UNO Awards.
UNO Awards. Shout out to FOTM David Marston.
Yeah, and CFNY was like, it was such a great station at the time to play stuff that, the mainstream was not interested in.
Well, David let his DJs in this Spirit of Radio era play what they want, essentially. Like, they had certain, there's a CanCon rule and certain rules, but really they could, within the certain parameters, you could just go to the shelf and pull out the record and play what you want, which is unheard of today, of course.
Well, it was unheard of at the time. I mean, we were playing a big show in Ottawa, and one of the big DJs from the big mainstream rock station came, and he was hanging out backstage, and he loved the band. And I said, if you love us, why don't you play us?
Right.
And he said, my programming is for people who aren't interested in music. They want to hear Kansas. They want to hear Led Zeppelin. They want to hear Toto. They don't want to hear anything new or exciting. And again, it's like we're in a time where people are trying to break through with different sounds, and so I'm seeing a real correlation now that I've got gray hair, and I'm an older dude, but I'm like, break the mold.
You got gray hair, but at least you have hair, right, Charlie?
I don't complain about the color as long as I got it.
You're speaking from my handbook here. I got hair. I don't care what happens with the pigmentation here. All right, I'm going to play another song because we're going to talk about what happens with L'Étranger, but let's play a little bit of... Name that tune there, Charlie.
Gordy and My Old Man on a Saturday Night from the One Job Town album. It was our great hockey tribute. Actually, I've written a few hockey tributes, but this was fun.
When I first met Gordy, I was 17. Dad called him a hoodlum, making tight blue jeans. But Daddy ain't like you'd ever be. He's fast Dad hauling cases of beer. And I ain't shapely as I used to be, but I like Gordy, well, he likes me. Gordy and my old man on a Saturday night, watching the Blackhawks and getting tired. Nothing ever changes in this world of mine. It's Gordy and my old man on a Saturday night. Well, never takes me down.
Okay, before we talk about this band, what happens to L'Étranger?
About 1984, I think we'd hit the wall again. We were seen as too political, maybe too problematic. Andrew Cash and I talked about it. I left. I started working with the homeless in the streets of Toronto, which was quite an education. And Andrew got signed by Island Records and went on to starting to tour and to travel. And I just
Boomtown.
Boomtown, yeah.
Huge.
Boomtown, we wrote that together while I was working in our house for the homeless, and Andrew was staying over in between European tours. So Boomtown was won the Juno for Video of the Year.
I actually loaded it up. I'm like, if it comes up organically, I'm going to play a little bit, only because it seemed to me as a younger man to be everywhere. Boomtown, Andrew Cash. Feel like a big deal.
It was also showing how music was changing. We were talking about people being forced out of their homes in Toronto at a time of the rising level of inequity, and it was like a top 10 pop hit. So,
yeah, without a doubt here. Okay, so maybe we'll come back to Boomtown just a little bit later. But what we're listening to now is Grievous Angels. So, like, what causes you to co-found Grievous Angels? Tell me a lot about Grievous Angels, because later we'll play new Grievous Angels, because Grievous Angels, as you pointed out, just dropped their 8th album, Last Call for Cinderella.
Well, the funny thing was, we just started out street busking. It was coming out of punk. I was really interested in the music I'd grown up with, which was my mom. We grew up on Cape Breton, Celtic, Irish stuff, and we did a lot of sing-alongs at home. My mom also loved like old Hank Williams, and I was rediscovering a lot of that kind of rootsy stuff. My bass got stolen at our house for the homeless, so I didn't have any electric instruments, so I had an acoustic guitar. And we just started forming a street busking band, going out Saturday mornings and throwing songs together. And then I started writing for that sound, and the next thing we knew, we were getting invites to play like the big folk festivals in Western Canada. And then the Grievous Angels were back we were suddenly a band, and we were back at it. And we completely sort of fallen into it.
That song, when I listen to it, Gordy and My Old Man, I get a Bruce Springsteen vibe. Like, I get a little bit of almost like a Jim Steinman Meatloaf flavor from the 70s.
Well,
do you hear any of that in there? There's like a little bit of I hear it feels a little bit like a Bruce song from the 70s.
Well, I've always loved Bruce Springsteen's writing. He's always been a big influence, just the way he wrote about people. And that song, Gordy and My Old Man on a Saturday Night, is a very fun song. But I met a girl that I knew, and I said, so, did your old man ever like your boyfriend? And she says, man, all he ever do is sit and watch hockey on Saturday night. I didn't expect that was going to be how my life turned out. And I said, voila, that's the story of love and romance in Canada. The son-in-law and the father-in-law getting tight, watching the Blackhawks every Saturday night, and she has to sit there with them.
Shout out to the biggest Blackhawks fan I know, Mo Berg. Okay, shout out to Mo Berg there. Still wandering the streets there in Toronto. Let me give you a couple of quick gifts here. You're an MP. You're allowed to accept gifts, right? If they're under a certain amount of dollars.
Yeah. Don't worry. I don't mind. I'll be brought up on charges. I can.
Well, I just had a CBC guy on here whose boss has said he's not allowed to accept my many lucrative gifts I give. Like he literally had to say no. It was like a CBC guy was not allowed to accept gifts. And then I was thinking, because I've had MPs on, and they walk away with their gifts happily. I just wondered what the rules were. But you'll take a risk. You're on your way out now. Okay.
They can charge me. Yeah. I'm not accepting anything from foreign governments. I'm putting that up. As long as this is not from a foreign government.
What about a book written by a guy who, it's safe to say, passionately dislikes the NDP? Will you accept this gift? This is Bruce Dobigan. Okay, he's a great writer, Great hockey writer. He's living in Calgary now, and I don't think he likes your party's policies very much. You'll still accept that book, right?
It sucks to be him, but yeah. Tell
Well,
him
he knows.
Tell him I'm coming for him.
He's coming from okay,
Yeah.
but okay. So Bruce Dobigan and his son Evan. His son Evan actually lives in Long Branch, not far from here, or Alderwood, anyway, near here, south of Etobicoke. But they wrote a book. I took no money to actually endorse this. I like to endorse this book. I took $0.00 to push here, but he self-published, and I like you. I like this DIY punk aesthetic. With this program you're on right now, it couldn't be more. I'm doing it all myself. I got to book you. I got to do my homework. I load up the songs. I greet you at the door. I got you a glass of water. I told you not to hit your head. There's no people here. It's just you and I, Charlie. And self-publishing a book, as you may know, is very difficult in this country. So to help raise awareness, I'm giving out copies, and I know you're a hockey fan. So this is called Deal With It: The Trades That Stunned the NHL and Changed Hockey. I think it's a good book to read after listening to Gordy on Saturday night.
I will read it, yes. And
it's got the Gilmore trade in there, okay? That's all you need to know. But there's the trades that stunned the world of hockey. So you got to read that. But I was paid to endorse something else here. I got to disclose that. But it's amazing. I can't wait to be there on Sunday. But there is free professional semi-pro baseball happening at Christie Pitts all summer long. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team plays there. It's an excellent caliber of baseball, but it's a great vibe. You fill the hill at Christie Pitts, and you can drink a beer there without getting arrested. That's a nice new development. You can enjoy the great food. So I'm giving you the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. Another book for you, Charlie. I know you like to read. So
that's fantastic. And I did these trades. Yes, I will read it. He might hate my politics, but
he wasn't always that way. He tells me moving out west changed his view on everything. And maybe I need an episode of Bruce and Charlie to talk this all out. But a couple more quick gifts. We're going to get back to everything here. Loving this very much. By the way, you wrote the biography of Les Costello.
Father Les, yeah, the Flying Father. We played with the Maple Leafs. Fascinating story. Was really famous, infamous in the North, working with the poor. The Grievous Angels played Mass for Father Costello once. We were on a national tour, and I called him, and we had a list of the things we wanted to do in exploring Canada. And we actually showed up one night at his church in Schumacher, Ontario, and sang our gospel set during his Mass. And then he took us all back to go drinking rye in his rectory. But Father Costello was a real character and a great hockey player.
Yeah, and it's an interesting story to leave, the NHL to become a Catholic priest in Timmins. That's fantastic. So people can check that out too. You don't find there's any clash between, being like you're such an advocate, hardworking. You talk about your grassroots activism and what you've been doing with the homeless and this whole punk rock ethos, DIY, get it done. There's no clash between that and Roman Catholicism? I was baptized as a baby and went through the Catholic school system, so I know a little of what I speak. But you don't see that they can swim together, these two ideologies.
Well, I was the only member of Parliament threatened with excommunication since 1917. Just after I was elected, I had the Diocese of Timmins put out a press release that they were going to have me defeated in the election, and I'll tell you, nothing brought home Catholic votes like being denounced from the pulpit. So I've been referred to as a dissident Catholic, which I think is a nice place to be. Here's the thing: I grew up at a time in the Toronto diocese, the school systems. We were taught about liberation theology. We had all these role models of working with the poor, social justice, and that was inspiring. That was before the cover-ups. That was before we saw how the church protected the abusers and the sex scandals. And then we also saw how they retreated from being on the front lines of a lot of social justice stuff. So that's their problem. The faith that I grew up in taught about solidarity. And so I carry that with me. But like I said, they call me a dissident Catholic. So I like that.
So it's not an all or nothing for you here. You can recognize when your church has ideologies that clash with your own personal.
Well, it's
beliefs.
I come from a wellspring of great roots and great traditions, and I don't feel the need that I have to kiss any bishop's ring or sign on to any corruption and the appalling behavior of the church in protecting some of the worst creeps and predators. That's something they need to explain. So, right. But you know, we are the Grievous Angels, so we sing fun songs and we throw in all these mixtures of all kinds of things into them.
But Charlie, do you still attend mass on a Sunday? Will I still find you in church?
I don't rarely go to mass anymore, but you know, I still go and light candles in odd church halls, and some of my daughters do too. So. But but it's, you know, that's one thing I decided is that I don't trust politicians who talk about religion. Any politician starts talking about faith, I tend to get a cold chill and run. So what I do with my faith in God or the goddess. It's
between you and your God.
Between me and the goddess, yeah.
Good for you. All right. I agree with you on that one too. All right. Quickly, I want to invite everybody. Charlie, I doubt you're in town, but on June 27th, that's a Thursday. It's coming up, everybody, from 6 to 9 p.m. I'm hosting TMLX 15. That's the 15th Toronto Mic'd Listener Experience. It's free to attend. Your first beer from Great Lakes Brewery. They brew their fresh craft beer right here in South Etobicoke. I have 4 cans for you to take with you, Charlie. You'll love it. You'll love it.
You're really setting me up. Is this Bruce Dobigan's idea of how I'm going to finally get charged? You know, the ethics commissioner.
He's hiding in the bushes outside with the
photos with
the RCMP are out there ready to pounce on you. But
I have not taken any foreign influence of anything. I want to put that on the record.
Right.
Except Sinn Féin bought me a beer once.
Okay. Well, no, thank you for revealing that. But
I will put that on the record.
Put that on the record. And of course, brewed right here in Southern Etobicoke, couldn't be less foreign if they tried. I can talk to the owner, Peter Bullitt, who lives here in Etobicoke.
Just can you assure that he's not backed up by, you know, the Iranians or the Russians or I'm
confident.
Okay. Good.
I think you're good on this one.
Okay.
But so again, Great Lakes is hosting it. Like, it's going to be at their brewery, which is in South Etobicoke, 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard. This is June 27. Again, come on out. There's no tickets. You just show up. The first beer is going to be on the house. Great Lakes is going to buy you your first beer, and then after that, you're on your own. But this is awesome. Palma Pasta. There's a family-run independent Italian eatery. They make delicious Italian food. They're in Mississauga and Oakville. They're going to feed everybody. So come hungry. You got your first beer on the house. You get Palma Pasta, and you can celebrate my 50th birthday with me, because that's right, Charlie. June 27, TMLX 15. That's the day I turn the big 50. So I know you're not in town, Charlie. You're off the hook.
Oh, geez, okay.
But if you were in town, I'd make sure you showed up.
I would have been there.
You would have been there. It would have been amazing. And last but not least, I'm sending you home with it's a quality wireless speaker. It's from Moneris. They want you to listen to season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, because speaking of Alberta, Al Grego from Moneris went to Alberta, and he's been talking to small business owners about the challenges that they've faced in their business, and then he shares the stories in this awesome podcast called Yes, We Are Open, and we just had Al over here to talk about season 6. So with that quality speaker, you can listen to Yes, We Are Open while you're listening to this wonderful episode of Toronto Mic'd with Charlie Angus. How does that sound?
Well, I'm going to have to definitely call the ethics commissioner and make sure that you're not getting me jailed.
Too far.
Yeah.
I love it, but you're on your way out. Yeah. So shout out to Simon Dingley, who also was afraid to accept my gift, even though his last day was on Friday or something. You know, you can never be too safe here. We got to follow the rules. We got to follow the rules, Charlie, and that's why I got to play this now, because I was thinking about it when you were talking about it, and I have it loaded up. So just a little of this, because it'll bring us back to Grievous Angels, and then we could get to the new stuff. And I got to get Andrew on the show.
Yeah, you got to get Andrew on.
I want Andrew on the show.
Walk back out again into the morning rain, the smell of mocha cream on my brain. I put my hands into my pocket, and
when I was younger, I used to sing this as Boomtown because that's my last name, Boone. But this is Boomtown. And so Andrew Cash, Boomtown, seemingly everywhere when I was really getting into music. And you say you co-wrote this with Andrew?
Yeah, I was when I was working with people on the streets, and I was beginning to see how it was getting harder and harder for people to find a place to live. And
this is in the 80s, right?
This is in the late 80s, yeah. This gentrification thing, it's got a long and deep history in Toronto. It wasn't the Brooklyn, they called it the Brooklynification of urban life. That's a 21st century thing. It was happening in the late 80s. Anyways, Andrew was coming back from a tour, I think in Europe. He'd been with Melissa Etheridge maybe. And he was staying at the house and he heard me writing something. He goes, "What are you writing?" And I said, "Oh, I got this song called Boomtown." And so we sat down and wrote that together. And it still sounds, I hadn't heard it in years. It sounds great.
It sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds great, and I wasn't familiar with that origin story there because I know you with L'Étranger, and you leave it to you're doing your social activism and all this important work, and then Andrew's got the solo stuff here, but then you go on and you form. Of course, we talked about you forming Grievous Angels, and yeah, like we're talking like this is top 40 radio material we're listening to in our headphones right now. It's catchy AF, as the kids would say.
Yeah,
we're gonna get Andrew on Toronto Mike.
You got to get him on. Yeah,
I don't know what took me so long. It took me a long time to get Charlie Angus, but you're not often in the T-Dot anymore. Are you gonna? So now that you're not going to be a member of Parliament for Timmins James Bay. Any plans to move back to Toronto, or are you gonna stay in where you're from?
I love my little town. I do underground mine tour starting June 29th. Get Charlie Angus to take you into an early 20th century mine. I do that. My daughter moved home and set up this beautiful tea shop with her boyfriend, who's a jazz-nominated jazz singer, Alex Bird, who's got a great single dropping today called Papaya. You gotta check it out. And,
amazing.
And so she's bought this little old mine building, and I'm her house carpenter, and she's doing all kinds of cool things. And, she just couldn't afford to live in Toronto, so she's at home in the north. And so I got a lot of projects I'm going to be doing.
You got a lot going on,
yeah.
and you got it all figured out, I feel like, because I feel like you're nourished spiritually, but you're living your best life, and you're doing the things you love, and now you're making music again. So let Andrew take us home there. Okay, so let's talk about the new album. So, and I want to know who else is in Grievous Angels. Like, talk to me more about Grievous Angels and the new album, and then I promise to play a new single. We can hear how good it sounds now.
Well, the original band, Peter Gillard, who still has his foot in Toronto, who's a brilliant multi-instrumentalist, who brings like the Cajun, the traditional Quebecois, the Irish feel with accordions and mandolins and everything. Tim Hadley, who toured many years with Stompin' Tom, is the anchor of the band. And so then Tim he got frustrated that I was too busy in politics, so he put together his own band that did Grievous Angels songs, and he brought in this great singer from Liverpool, Janet Mercier. And I came down and was like, wait a minute, she's singing my songs. I want to get up there and sing with her. So that kind of started the new band lineup with Janet and I doing a lot of duets, which I've always loved as a sound. Alexandra Bell was a beautiful singer and a keyboardist, and her politics are much further left than mine. Nathan Mahaffey is a monster drummer, and he comes out of punk rock. Ian McKendry on guitar. So it's a 7-piece band. That's a big band to sort of try and get everyone not to be playing on top of each other.
That sounds like Broken Social Scene over here. What's going on?
I know. We are just like 2 members shy of Broken Social Scene, but it's just such a great band. So I got excited about writing for them, writing for their voices, writing for the sounds that I could hear coming from this band. So what you're hearing on Last Call for Cinderella was recorded live over 3 days at Canterbury Studios in Toronto. I mean, Jeremy Darby has recorded with everybody on the planet, multiple Grammy Award nominations and wins. And everything you hear on the record is pretty much live off the floor. So it was a very, very, very raw live recording and a lot of fun.
Very Cowboy Junkies of you. I feel like that's like a Trinity Sessions here for you, live on the floor. Is there any contributions? And I won't be mad if it's not, except I'm such a massive fan of the man, and he's been down here. Love this guy. But is there any contribution from Andy Mays on the new album?
Andy Mays was on the last album, and he just showed up to do one song and hung out and sang on half the record. Yeah, we love Andy Mays.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
Love shout out to the Sky Diggers. I saw them again. I saw them in Hamilton just last December, and what a gem of a band Sky Diggers.
Every Sky Diggers show is my favorite show of all time.
Yeah, and then I've been listening to some of the older Gord Downey solo stuff and Josh Finlayson and his contributions and stuff. And this we you know what? Charlie, we got a great country here with such wonderful musicians, you know. I sometimes worry, like, I don't know if I even should care, except only the accountants, I guess, should care. But like, sometimes you don't appreciate a Canadian artist until they have an American hit. Do you ever feel this sense? I'm talking about the great unwashed, the masses.
I think what Canada has, you know, for the Grievous Angels, Canada was an adventure to explore, to discover, and I still have that idealism, that love, that hope, the great spaces, the tolerance, the decency of the people, and you find it in the music. Such great artists and writers. Jason Collette, who was part of that scene that we grew up in and contributes on this record. The Sky Diggers, you know, Sarah McLachlan, like so many, the Spirit of the West. We all get lumped under Americana, I think technically, but Canadiana is a different thing. And it's weird how even like, I mean, I'm not going to diss CBC, but I don't hear a lot of those great voices on, you know, our nation's broadcast. You have to seek them out. You have to, you know, they all live on Bandcamp and that, but it's such a great, it is a great music tradition to be part of.
Speaking of the CBC, I got to ask you as an outgoing MP, but do you personally have any concerns of what happens next federal election? Should and it looks likely, I'm not saying polls are everything, but it's very possible, probably plausible, that the Conservative Party forms the next government in this country. Do you have any concerns about what becomes of the CBC?
I think Pierre Poilievre would kill the CBC on day one. We're living in a sea of disinformation and rage politics, and having national journalists is not something that they want. That's the right game.
What does that
plan.
mean? Like, I hear you say that in my headphones, and I have this like, well, that can't happen. But like, can we get like really specific here? What do you mean? Like no more government money for CBC. You're on your own, just like, you know, CTV and other Bell Media properties, etc. Like, is this what you're referring to?
Well, I mean, he continually denounces it as state media, the state broadcaster. They talk about that they're going to, you know, spend the money on whatever. But I think the CBC is challenged now. I think it needs a real rethink. But it is one of those unique voices right now because journalism is under threat, and we can talk about politics being under threat, but if you don't have a strong independent media challenging politicians, everything becomes possible in a bad way. And I really see in Parliament the disappearance of, you know, they called it the parliamentary press gallery. I mean, they're down to threads now, and it is a bulwark of democracy, and it's also a way the nation hears each other and learns from each other. You can't do that, you know, with a whole series of private radio stations playing commercial stuff. CBC is the way that we always heard each other and how we learn stuff. You know, I ran into Ron Sexsmith the other day, and I said to him, Ron, two things. You probably don't remember that one of your first gigs was opening for us.
Wow.
And then 6 months later, you're the biggest guy on the planet. We never forgot that. But I said, you know, Ron, one time I was driving through a bush road in Northern Ontario, and one of your songs came on the radio, Former Glory, and I was so moved. I actually pulled over at the side of the road to listen to it. That's what a nation's voice and broadcaster does. I never would have heard that song on private radio.
No, because it's not a top 40 song,
Yeah.
right? You're 100% right, and you referenced Brave New Waves earlier, and you know I have a lot of people like you on the show, and where were you discovering music? And it always, if they're from the GTA, it always came down to two sources. It was Brave New Waves and CFNY. This is where they discovered music. You know, they weren't going to hear that on 680 CFTR here in Toronto because it wasn't top 40.
Yeah, and Chum FM wasn't going to play us, so those are the places. And then, you know, in the 90s, Peter Zowski really transformed everything. I mean, literally the Grievous Angels were a street busking band, and Zowski had us on, and then we were playing big shows across Canada. That is an amazing power, and I think CBC has to do better at maintaining that role, but let's not let it slip away.
Let's listen to some new Grievous Angels and talk about this. Let's tune in.
I got 2 jobs, I got 3 roommates. I'm a woman of 43. I got 2 jobs, I got 3 roommates. I'm a woman of 43. I got 2 jobs, I got 3 roommates. I'm a woman of 43. Got a dream that keeps me going, of a place I've never seen. So I save what I can in this gig economy. So I save what I can in this gig economy. So I save what I can in this gig economy. I know that where I'm going, Barcelona, I'll be free. No pastoral, no pastoral. Comrade, give me your hand. Barcelona, I'll be free. Greasy Brendan is the foreman, and his hands, they won't stay still. Greasy Brendan is the foreman, and his hands, they won't stay still. Greasy Brendan is the foreman, and his hands, they won't stay still. I made myself a promise, that man I'm gonna kill. No pastoral, no pastoral. Comrade, give me your hand. Barcelona, I'll be free.
Sounds great in the headphones, man, but you're saying something here. This is Barcelona. This is a parenthetical jam because you've got "I'll be free" in parentheses there. But tell me about this song.
Well, this song really is about the world of the gig economy, the contract work, the fact that people can't afford to live while the 1% are burning our planet. And it's funny that it's a very political song. It's called Politically Charged, is what I was told in one of the reviews. I had that woman character in my head first. I had the image.
The 43-year-old?
The 43-year-old working at a crap job with a crappy boss and thinking that she's going to have a right to freedom. And Barcelona is a symbol. Barcelona, we go back to the Spanish Civil War, and you know, the Canadians who fought in Barcelona, and when the Canadians were leaving Barcelona, when the fascists were coming, and the people came out in the streets and sang to them and threw roses to the survivors of the Mackenzie Papineau Brigade. So it's a metaphor of a place where freedom should reign, and I think it's a modern protest song. We need songs that articulate what's happening to us. So it's very much written in the tradition of those songs, and yeah, and I think very much relevant today.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a recent album from Lowest to the Low. I love Lowest to the Low, if that's not apparent yet, but I think Ron Hawkins and the gang are fantastic. But Agit Pop, they called it, and full of protest music. And I was like, there should be more protest music than ever right now, you'd think. You know, we always hear back, Vietnam War happened, and then there was Nixon, and look what came out of all this and that. But it doesn't feel like we're being, and maybe it's not being discovered, maybe not being found. Maybe it's out there and we're just not hearing it, possibly. But you essentially here, as I listen, you're giving a voice to the voiceless here, and I love it. Hold on.
2 jobs, I got 3 roommates. I'm a woman of 43. I got 2 jobs, I got 3 roommates. I'm a woman of 43. Got a dream that keeps me going, of a place I've never seen.
Wow. Janet Mercier, Alexandra Bell, and Nathan Mahaffey, our drummer with an incredible voice. It's the one song I don't sing on, and I just
That's
love
why I played it.
I love it. It's again giving voice. This is. When I started to hear Janet and Alex singing together, and I came in and wrote this song, and the first thing they said was, "Yeah, we know Greasy Brendan. We had to work with him. He's the dirty foreman in the song." And but they sing the song, and it's their voice. It's a woman's voice. It's great.
It is great. It is great. And again, Last Call for Cinderella is the name of the album, Grievous Angels. It's you're going to have your album release show at the Horseshoe Tavern, appropriately enough, on Sunday. That's June 9th, because, people can listen to podcasts whenever. So this is June 9, 2024, in case you show up June 9th, 2025, and you're like, where the hell is Charlie? I was promised some Charlie Angus here. Okay, so 1 p.m., and get your tickets. Do you want to direct people to is there a website or a place people should go?
They can go to the Grievous Angels Facebook thing to get tickets in advance or at the door. We're doing it with Make Music Matter, which is a great organization doing using music to deal with trauma and raising up voices. And we've done some great work with them. And John Bora, another Toronto legend.
He's been here. He's been down here.
There you go.
He's played live in the basement.
He's played live. Well, see, this is just.
Look, I'm a big Blurton head here.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody who played of Change of Heart, I got an obsession with.
So it's going to be a great show.
Sounds amazing. Now, I got to ask you about Stompin' Tom Connors for a minute here. I'm dedicating this question to Banjo Dunk Fremlin, good FOTM, who is still touring with his Douglas Cameron, and they're playing a lot of great Stompin' Tom.
They're playing Haileybury Legion, I think. I think
you're right.
Back for that, but I'm not sure if I'm back in town or not.
Yeah, he's still flying the flag for Stompin' Tom, and shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. We lost Stompin' Tom, but you did tour with Stompin' Tom, right? You were performing for residential school survivors.
Well, we did residential school survivors dance. No, Tim, our bass player, toured regularly with Stompin' Tom. But my story of Stompin' Tom is he got a start in Timmins at the Maple Leaf Tavern, which the Angels played at. And in 1966, he had a single on the radio in Timmins, CKGB radio, that outsold the Beatles. And it was Fire in the Mine. It was about the big fire in the McIntyre mine where my grandfather worked. And that song electrified me. So we do tons of Stompin' Tom songs in our show. We've always been hugely influenced by Tom.
Yeah, like Bud the Spud, for example. All the great Stompin' Tom songs. Okay, now, is there any... Can you shout out here? Because on our way out here, I will play a song from Shakespeare, My Butt, from Lois the Low, because I close every episode of Rosie and Gray from that album.
Oh, God.
Every episode. Yeah. Every episode. Love it so much. But are there any current bands you want to shout out who are giving a voice to the voiceless today?
There's so many great. I'm a big fan of July Talk. I just loved them, and they did a shout out to me, and I was like, wow, that is like I felt recognized. Yeah,
absolutely. July Talk. Her father writes for the Toronto Sun.
And really?
I don't think they love the NDP either over there at the Toronto Sun.
That's okay. But July Talk likes this.
July Talk likes you.
Yeah, Adrian Sutherland. So many great Indigenous acts that are really, laying it down right now. And then I give a shout out to my son-in-law Alex Bird and the Jazz Mavericks, who dropped their single Papaya today, just because I worked with him on his first album, helped produce it, wrote a bunch of songs, but he's doing his thing. He doesn't need the old father-in-law hanging around, but they're just doing really exciting, fun stuff. And it's great to see these young musicians who are really on top of their game.
Amazing. And earlier you talked about the term Americana. And I always found it interesting that, it's almost, I don't know if anything ever is invented, like everything just evolves in different ways. But you could almost say the band, which was a thoroughly Canadian act, they had Levon from Arkansas, but it was otherwise, it was a thoroughly Canadian act. The band almost invents, in a sense, Americana. Like it should be Canadiana.
And Canadiana is different from Americana, but it's
more fiddles. Like
yeah, I just did a big interview with a guy from the UK who's got a radio show in Americana, and I was explaining. He said, "You got such different cultural." He said, "Sounds." I said, "Yeah, accordions, the fiddles, and it's not that sort of Appalachian fiddle. It's more maritime. It's more Quebecois. And you hear it on the band, that whole incredible sound of really rootsy instruments and the way the voices come together. To me, there's part of what makes the Grievous Angels special is we really are a soundtrack of the great northern highways, and it's country music, but it's not American music.
And then I know you're now just releasing Last Call for Cinderella, so you might let me enjoy this for a moment here. But what is next for Grievous Angels? Like, is there going to be another album? You're going to keep going now that you have a little more, maybe a little more time in your hand, that you're not in Ottawa all the time?
I'm really trying hard not to write songs right now because we have a thing. As soon as we get excited, start playing. I write a lot of new songs, then we don't sing the songs from the record. So we're going to play the record for a little bit. But I'll start thinking of the next project. It might be different. It might be an EP. We might go more grassrootsy. Who knows? We might get louder.
Yeah, you might get, punk. We need louder, but you know what? I'm now that I'm playing Lowest of the Low, I'm thinking the most recent Lowest of the Low album had a lot of ska on it. Is there any ska in your future?
I'll leave Ron and Steve to do ska, but Rosie and Gray, a great Toronto anthem.
Charlie, thanks for doing this, man. I'm like the punk rock politician is coming over, and you're leaving politics, and you're done with politics?
No, I'm leaving being a member of Parliament. I'm not leaving politics. You'll see me. You'll see me down the road. I'll be stirring the pot in a big way. I got lots of ideas.
Okay, stay tuned. And when this new book comes out, got to get you back here because I just want to dive deep into that scene in the 80s in Toronto. And I want to read that and talk to you about that. So how does that sound?
I will get the book to you as soon as it's out.
I want an advance copy. Come on, this
you'll
is
get it.
Mike.
Okay, you gave me some advance copies. I'll get you an advance copy.
Amazing. And that brings us to the end of our 1503rd episode of Toronto Mic'd. You can follow me on, I'm all over the place, Twitter, everywhere. Go to torontomike.com and you'll find the links. But you can follow me at Toronto Mike. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. Charlie's got his beer. Palma Pasta. They're feeding us on June 27th at Great Lakes Brewery. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Charlie, I forgot to tell you that if you have, and I know you're an environmentalist and you're well aware of all this, but if you have that drawer of old, electronics, cables.
Where do I send it?
Don't throw it in the garbage, Charlie, because then the chemicals end up in our landfill.
No, absolutely
Don't do that.
not.
Go to RecycleMyElectronics.ca, put in your postal code, and it'll be like, there are accredited depots you can drop them off where they will be properly recycled. So go to RecycleMyElectronics.ca. And the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, amazing baseball, amazing vibes. We were rained out last Sunday, but I'm going to be there this Sunday. Cross your fingers I'm not rained out again. Looking forward to this. It's Pride Day at Christie Pitts. Monaris, of course, they're behind Yes, We Are Open. You've got your speaker, Charlie. And Ridley Funeral Home. There's a measuring tape for you, Charlie Angus. I almost forgot to give it to you. Ridley Funeral Home wants you to have a measuring tape to make your life even better. That's for you, Charlie. See you all Sunday when I'm live from Christie Pitts with Mike Richards. See you then.
I'll play this guitar just the best that I can. Well, maybe I'm not and maybe I am. Who gives a damn, because everything is coming up rosy and green. Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine and it's just like mine and it won't go away. Everything is rosy and gray. Well, I've kissed you in France and I've kissed you in Spain, and I've kissed you in places I better not name. And I've seen the sun go down on Sacré-Cœur.